Welcome to Nuanced Beauty, because the world is nuanced and we think that's beautiful. Hi guys.
Hey everybody.
Welcome back to Nuanced Beauty. Hey Bill, what are you drinking over there?
Well, I'm channeling my inner basic white girl and enjoying this sparkling seltzer with lime and tequila.
Tequila. It's called a freshie.
It's called a freshie.
It's USDA organic.
That actually sounds weirdly dirty.
Oh, a freshie? Oh my gosh, yeah, that does. Yeah, that part.
Well,
okay.
I'm not going to look at this drink the same way ever again. I didn't actually look at the title. I just like, we're going to talk about alcohol today. And hot dog, I can go for a drink. But I'm in the elder millennial where we're still drinking.
We're still drinking.
We're still drinking. But
yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of stats recently about the decline of alcohol use. And I think it is broad spectrum, but especially across generations. And we want to dive a little bit into why we think that is based on nothing other than our opinions.
Nothing in particular. Yeah.
But it's an interesting conversation because it is.
Because we're noticing it and we're seeing more and more things that just like, oh, yeah, that ties into this conversation.
We're just seeing the numbers bearing out. And like, there's a lot of different numbers up there, all kind of saying the same thing in general. But I pulled up because I just wanted to have some numbers to talk about that. In a recent survey in England, the proportion of 15-year-olds who have drunk alcohol in the past week fell from 52% to 20% between 2001 and 2021.
Okay, so, and that's England, but it's a 20-year span. But obviously England seems, when it comes to a lot of different topics, they seem to be ahead of us, and then we catch up about a decade later.
Yeah, in some spaces, yeah. But I think this is it's just indicative of a larger trend.
Yeah.
If you Google it, you'll find all sorts of different studies with different numbers in it, but they're all trending in that direction.
And you'll see the Instagram videos about younger folks who are like doing the dry thing and like all the things.
Dry January. And things like that,
and like not wanting to spend money. Oh gosh, yeah. That we could. You want to get into the social first?
Yeah, we're starting to get into a little bit to the reason. So the question is, why are people not drinking so much? And there's a lot of reasons put out there, but the one that I'm not seeing talked about enough is the fact that drinking alcohol is a inherently social activity.
Yeah.
If you ever Google, am I an alcoholic? And I've definitely never done that before. But if you ever Google, am I an alcoholic? You're going to find a survey. And one of the questions on that survey is, do you drink alone?
Boo. Yeah, because that means clearly you must have a drinking problem if you drink alone.
And I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
Some.
Yeah.
Not it's not
entirely.
absolute. It's one of the questions. But in a world where people are not physically present with one another, which was already trending down before COVID, but COVID definitely exacerbated people not socializing in one place together. There's less opportunities for drinking. Like growing up, growing up, we would drink around a bonfire.
Yeah, or even like think about our parent. Like, I mean,
our parents' generation was even different.
There's a local bar front which we've talked about before, and I don't know if this came up on a show or if this was just in our combo.
But it was a place where everyone know your name.
Yeah, there's a local bar, and you could spend $2 to $4 on a single drink. So you could have 4 drinks, and it's a cheapo beer, whatever, not high alcohol content, and
you just have a Coors Light or whatever.
But you could do that and only spend like under $10.
Oh yeah, my first job. That's not true.
The cost of drinking.
One
is
of my
way
first
more
jobs was at a bar in northern Wisconsin. And it was $1 for a draft beer.
Yeah.
$1.50 if you wanted a bottle.
Yeah, so the cost, I think, and obviously inflation, whatever, but I think the cost of the drink, like the proportions.
The $7 beer you're buying now far outstrips the inflation.
Yeah, I think so. I think like the cost is substantially more than what it used to be.
So I think that's why bars are no longer really a thing. Milwaukee, where I'm from, has or at least had a great tavern culture, and the Milwaukee Brewers every game nominates a tavern of the day from the Tavern League of Wisconsin. There's still a great tavern culture, and the reason why was is a factory town, and every neighborhood had a factory and a tavern, and all the men would go to the factory and then they go to the tavern, and it's actually a huge part of American history where the Revolutionary War started in a tavern.
Well,
because
up where you're like
the public house,
up in like the North Central, like your snowmobile trails lead between
interconnected all the taverns.
Yeah, that's like a well-trodden path.
Yes, there was a legitimate highway system with signs and everything for snowmobiles going from bar to bar where you weren't supposed to drink and drive your snowmobile, of course. So that's why I think bars are less the case.
Yeah,
I think that's somewhat independent.
Bars might be a very heavily cost-influenced reason for declining.
Yeah,
but drinking.
But just in general, folks aren't. There's a whole book about this that I tried to read, but it's way too dry.
Bowling Alone.
Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam, and I keep seeing it referenced. So I tried to read it, but it's a legit textbook with tables and everything.
Yeah,
about how the social fabric around things like bowling leagues.
The club, Kings, Knights Club, Knights.
Oh yeah, Knights of Columbus, the Lions Club, the Optimists, the Elks.
Yeah,
all of these things where people would come together in community, and this is specifically around men. That was our only means of having community, and we have none of it now. And if you want to talk about the rise in suicide amongst men, that's part of it. But it's also a drop in alcohol consumption because you come together around alcohol. It's an inherently social thing. So if you don't have those social things, you also don't have the setting in which you might drink alcohol. So you can say that it's a silver lining of the complete collapse of community. At least people aren't drinking as much. But I think that's the chief thing that I don't think is being talked about enough. What I see more often, which is I think has some truth, is people are very health conscious now. Well,
and health conscious, but also risk averse, right? Like that's another big conversation for the youngins below us, which is hilarious to say because we're not old. But I feel like we're at that middle tipping point.
You ever seen the movie Steel Magnolias?
We're starting to be old.
Have you ever seen the movie Steel Magnolias?
Nope.
Me neither, but I saw a quote from it.
Okay,
where
tell me the quote.
The character says, "I'm too old to be young and too young to be old."
Yeah, that's where we're at. So like the risk aversion. So it's both like there's a social, like it's risky to be in person with people and like actually put yourself out there and be vulnerable with somebody or just hang with somebody in a casual place for a long time. But then there's like risk, like not wanting to learn how to drive a car because they're so risky. And not wanting to have sex because sex is so risky, and maybe because you can get your fill elsewhere. But
that's a whole nother thing.
But alcohol too.
It's one of the things
has to be a component of it's not healthy and it's risky.
I consider myself a very empathetic person, and I can understand why someone might not want to go out and have casual sex. In fact, I would encourage that. And I understand why someone might not want to drink alcohol, because if you're going to go somewhere and drink alcohol, it's an uncontrolled situation. You have to find a way to get home, and all sorts of reasons why that might be risky. To not get your driver's license is just beyond the pale.
That's the one you can't get.
I cannot understand.
I don't know, but I think it's like the far extreme that you can use to illustrate. That said, we did have a friend in college, but she lived in a big city, so that's part of it. You don't understand it because we lived in.
She didn't live in a big city.
Areas.
She lived on an army base where her dad coached her volleyball team, so she never had to have.
But also the people who live in cities. And
if you're listening, we love you, but we still are going to give you crap for this.
But okay, go into the health risks though. The thought
on... Well, think about the fact that 40 years ago, how many people smoked.
Yeah.
And that there was a very deliberate campaign against cigarette smoking, and now most people don't smoke.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a campaign against
There's
drinking.
not, but I do think it was a secondary effect.
Okay.
I do think that when people start thinking about the things we regularly consume and how they affect our body, I think an intoxicating liquid like alcohol, I think it got caught up in that same maelstrom. I think people are thinking about what goes in their body on a regular basis.
I mean, you are consuming an organic vodka. Not vodka, organic tequila. Yeah, it's organic tequila, organic ingredients.
It's an organic hard seltzer. I feel
even more bougie.
I feel like more like a white college girl, but it is delicious though.
Yeah, it's
very
delightful.
Refreshing.
Yeah.
But yes, and organic vodka is organic liquors are a thing because we're all crunchy
taste
that
better
way
too.
I get less hungover for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much of that's just, confirmation bias.
I think it could be, but the additives and preservatives, which I care
scrolling
about.
around Instagram, I do see a lot of, very fit-looking people saying there are no redeeming qualities to alcohol. And if you hang around like fitness communities online, it's all about optimization and trying to do things exactly perfectly and right. And I think we're going to talk about fitness maybe on another episode and the pitfalls of that type of striving for perfection. But I think that there are people who are like, I don't need this and it's bad for me, so I'm just going to not do it. Especially, and we're going to talk about non-alcoholic beverages in a little bit, but when there are some really good substitutes for it. LaCroix replaced beer for me for a while. Because what is a non-alcoholic? Kombucha, exactly. It's something that's a little bit bitter, a little bit sour, and a little bit hard to drink fast, which is alcohol. So you can kind of sip on it. And really what you're doing, and this is true with cigarettes too. As someone who used to smoke, I can say the ritual of consuming something slowly is part, and that kind of meditative aspect of that is part of the experience. Which
the experience, in part, is a social one, or it feels better as a social one.
Yeah, because you are participating in this thing together.
Yeah.
So even something like LaCroix or a non-alcoholic beer, which you can't chug. And people do chug beer, and I never understood that either. You are still being very deliberate and present in a thing.
Yeah.
And especially in a group, there's part of the soothing, like obviously, alcohol does have its own intoxicating effect, but part of the soothing nature of it is that deliberation and that forcing you kind of to be present with it. That's why I like drinking things like whiskeys neat, because you can't drink it fast. You have to be present in it. And part of that experience is what makes it soothing. Vodka's surprisingly good neat. I never knew that until recently.
Yeah, it was an organic vodka.
It was an organic vodka. Yeah, we bought it because I'm making vanilla extract with it, which didn't actually take the whole bottle, obviously. So I'm like, okay, let's just see what this tastes like. And actually, it has some like subtle fruit and floral essences to it. If you don't mix it with, orange juice or whatever I never understood mixed drinks in general.
Cocktail.
It takes all the actual positive flavors out of the alcohol, and you're just left with the paint thinner. It's awful. But I do think it's hard to say this about an increasingly obese population, but I think people are health conscious in that way, and that's not a bad thing.
It's almost like increasingly obese, but like at what point do you finally like, oh my goodness, everybody ring the alarm bell, like we're all failing here, and part of it is our health, and is alcohol entirely unhealthy? I mean, wine, there's some mixed stuff, like the R word. It starts with an R in wine. That is because it's a fruit. It's come on,
I don't know.
Resveratrol.
I've never heard that word before.
Oh my gosh. So it is the thing that has to do with heart health, and it's, whatever. There is a stress. Like, I mean, I might fall into the category of I would rather maybe have a glass of wine a night to work on my anxiety if I was anxious than go take a product.
That sounds like you have a problem.
Then
sounds like you have a problem.
But I don't even drink that much wine. But I'm saying, like, I would fall into the camp of, like, I can see this is where we're obviously not younger and, like, see it as totally unhealthy because, the relaxing part is there. The idea of, like, the de-stressor is there, like, whatever. So... And you're so bad. I don't have a problem. I actually drink,
you don't.
Like maybe one drink a week.
You really don't. When you frame it that way, like I need it for my anxiety. That
oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, I gotcha.
That sounds more like a crutch. But that's if you Google this, you're gonna find a lot of things about. Oh yeah, there's such a conscious, health conscious generation. I just don't know if that's true, especially because how many Gen Zs vape? And that's the other thing.
That was fixation.
Professional segue right there.
Has gone on to something else.
That is something. And the article that actually ripped that English study from was actually an article rebutting this idea of like, well, pot's legal. So people
must be healthy.
No. It's from the earth, man.
There's another topic.
It's healthy because it's from the earth.
Those wine grapes are from the earth. Okay, keep going.
People, the younger generation isn't drinking alcohol because they're smoking pot. And that's one vice I haven't done, so I don't really know how substitutionary it is.
Like if it's exactly a 1-for-1 output input,
so I can't actually speak to that, but it is an idea that's out there. Like, well, people are smoking more pot, so they're drinking less alcohol. So maybe I know nothing in that area.
Which, if we're speaking about vape, I'm just going to share the thing that I never patented, but I should patent, is a saline vape, because people are starting to acknowledge the benefits of like a nebulizer if you have a lung issue.
It's really hard to get a child to put a nebulizer mask over this face, but it's easy to teach a child to smoke.
Don't you think we could teach them how to vape a nebulizer? Like a nebulizer vape, like pharmaceutical grade, like that should be patented, y'all. I'm just saying. Somebody out there, go ahead, steal my idea.
It's on recording now, so if you steal your idea, we have evidence that we thought of it first.
I know. But
I think maybe. I know the numbers are out there, but I don't think
like pot has totally replaced alcohol.
Not enough in enough places. There's only 30-something states that even have pot approved for medicinal use. And even fewer that have it approved for recreational use. I think, again, I think number one, it's the social thing, but I think the social thing also ties into phones. Like what do you drink alcohol to do? Yeah, you drink it to be social, but you also drink it to numb yourself, and that's where I've
like you have some sort of negative or some energy that's a little off, and you might
I need to not think. I need to not think for a little while. Yeah, and this is going to help me do that. You know what else helps you not think for a little while? Scrolling Instagram. So I think absent that phone, you'd find something else to numb you. But we all kind of self-medicate with the social media.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of chicken and egg in that because we're talking about that phone also is part of the what prevents you from socializing, because you don't think, if you didn't have your phone and you're just in your house and there's just nobody else there, you're going bored outside of your mind. I'm going to go find somebody to talk to. I don't have to do that right now. I have this phone. I'm going to sit, I travel for work a lot. And there's a hotel bar. Do I hang out at the hotel bar? No, I'm in my phone scrolling Instagram.
Yeah.
If I didn't have Instagram, I'd probably go have a drink at the bar.
Yeah. But also, like, we were going to talk about the availability of just non-alcoholic options.
Yeah, and that's another chicken and egg
kind
question.
Of an interesting,
it's
and
really
advertising
boomed.
too.
It's really boomed. We'll get to that. But like, growing up, my dad could not drink alcohol. He was on a long-term medication. It didn't mix well with alcohol. He couldn't drink. So my whole life, we never really had alcohol in the house. But we'd have Sharps every now and again. Sharps was a non-alcoholic beer that's made by the Miller Company. And then O'Doul's is also a thing. You drank O'Doul's when you were breastfeeding because beer, I guess, is
barley.
Good.
It's barley. The barley. So you need a dark, like porter style O'Doul's.
It's actually good for lactation, but you can't drink the beer. So really in a catch-22. But at the time, and this was even 2017 when Zeke was born, the only two non-alcoholic beers out there were Sharps and O'Doul's. And really O'Doul's. I couldn't find Sharps at the time. But now it's everywhere.
Yeah.
There's things like Athletic Brewing and all these other like small companies.
Brewdog.
Which
was not good. Well,
I didn't care for it.
We didn't care for it. It was a little too watered down. But Athletic Brewing Co., which is obviously like that's one you can find in Target and Trader Joe's and all the beer and liquor stores. Like I think they're kind of becoming the big player on the block, and I think that the Budweiser in that, like there's a Budweiser Zero, there's a Guinness Zero. The big players are getting into it. They're trying to get into it, yeah.
Which I thought, good. It's the same thing with like, you ever see the Liquid Death cans?
No.
It's bottled water, but it's in a can and it looks like a beer can.
Oh, okay.
So you could, if you were at a party, you'd blend in because Jim Gaffigan has a good bit about this where it's like alcohol is the only thing, if you don't drink it, people will like interrogate you like, oh, you don't drink alcohol? Why? It's never like, and I'm just ripping his bit right now.
Yeah.
It's never, oh, you don't eat mayonnaise? Why? Are you addicted to mayonnaise? If you have something like a Liquid Death or an Athletic Brewing, which looks like a craft beer, people just aren't going to ask. And that's part of, like, it's actually difficult to not drink in a social situation that people are drinking without somebody asking.
And do you think maybe that particular bit right there, because every generation wants to be different than the generation before them and act like they created, they reinvented the wheel, like they're better than the other ones. And so like the snobbery of the young is that, oh, we're not like that. Like, we're not going to judge you for not drinking.
That could be, but I mean, people have been drinking for a long time.
Yeah.
It can't be just because of a generational thing, because there's been a lot of generations. Go back and watch, this is interesting, go back and watch The Graduate, or really any movie from that era. Something that really stood out to me when I watched it is that the main character would come in to rooms all over the movie, and the first question someone would ask isn't, would you like a drink? It was, scotch or bourbon?
Okay.
There was just a presumption that you would be drinking. So if you're not drinking, it stands out. So that's why I think things like non-alcoholic beers that like look like beers are just an objective good. That said, I saw an interesting, file this under conspiracy theory, about specifically the big players. See,
like Budweiser or such.
And
Miller,
Guinness.
Coors. Okay.
There are laws against advertising alcohol in certain venues.
Okay.
But there's not laws against otherwise alcoholic companies who are selling non-alcoholic beverages. So if you look at the Guinness Zero logo, Guinness, it looks like the Guinness logo, and it's in big, that creamy colored writing. And then the zero is in like much smaller print.
Below it,
So they can advertise that anywhere. And it's like all over soccer stadiums right now, this Guinness Zero.
Okay.
So it's really, are they advertising Guinness Zero? No, they're advertising the brand of Guinness. Which happens
now
to sell
at
least one
version.
Non-alcoholic product.
So they can advertise for cheaper?
No, it's not.
Maybe?
No, they're
just allowed
they're advertising
to
where they were previously not allowed to advertise.
Okay.
And that's really interesting.
So are we going to see a row of Guinness Zero at the bottom of the cereal aisle?
Exactly. They don't want at the bottom of the cereal aisle. They actually want it. They want the cart eye level. So it's just below our eye level. It's the level that a kid's sitting in the cart. It's at their eye level. That's where they're selling the Guinness.
Okay, yeah, that's the Guinness row. Okay.
So, I appreciate that there's non-alcoholic beers. I've largely switched to that. The only time I really feel like I have to be drinking alcohol is like if we're going to like two-way baseball game or physically at a baseball game. There's something special about that. And again, it's part of like the social aspect of being part of this larger thing. And we're all like, I don't like Miller Lite. I'm not allowed back in Wisconsin for saying that. But going to a Brewers game and drinking a Miller Lite and
it's part of the thing.
It's part of the experience.
It's the tradition.
It's tradition.
Camaraderie.
There you go. That said, I have and I'm so excited to talk about this. I have mead brewing in my pantry right now.
Which real quick, tell people what mead is made of. People might not know what mead is.
It's basically wine, but instead of using fruit, you use honey.
So you use honey, yeast, and water.
That's basically it. Yeah, I put a little bit of tea in there just to give it a little bit
flavor,
of
depth.
A little depth, little mouthfeel, Again, that just sounds.
So we'll see how this goes because this is the first attempt at that.
Yeah. So as much as I'm saying, oh yeah, I love this non-alcoholic drinks. I've largely switched over to non-alcoholic drinks. I have this freshie in front of you,
and you got mead in the pantry.
So there's that.
Yeah.
But again, elder millennial here, so
we're allowed to still like alcohol.
We're allowed to still like alcohol. It's still cool for us. So the question is, what do you think? And does it matter? Is this a good thing that people are drinking less alcohol? Is it worth the drop in social interaction? No one talks to each other anymore, but at least they're not drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see kind of what happens.
Or is this actually a trend, or is it a long term?
Yeah,
is this
a blip.
Actually a turn, or is it just going to be a blip of like the 1920s speakeasy, whatever? Was it the 20s prohibition?
Yeah, the 20s prohibition. Like there was a huge temperance movement.
Which was more like that came
Lips
from above.
that touched liquor shall not touch mine. The women who led the temperance movement would say.
We shall see. But for now, we're going to enjoy our freshies and see how this mead turns out. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and in the spirit of nuance, I hope you found something that you could agree with and you could disagree with, and still choose to lean in. Give us a follow, rating, and review, and consider sharing this episode with a friend to continue the dialogue and help us grow. Until next time.